For the next hour, you're listening to the Classic Auto Mall show and podcast, broadcast from the Classic Auto Mall studio in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Now, on to the show with our host, President of Classic Auto Mall, Stewart Howden.
And we're back with the Classic Auto Mall podcast from the Classic Auto Mall studio in Morgantown, Pennsylvania, where we're joined by my buddy Al Liebmann today, who is in Pawleys Island, South Carolina, one of my favorite parts of the world, on the golf course with his, what would that be behind you, Al?
It's an original 32.5 window with a small block Chevy in it.
But of course it is. Al, as I said earlier, works for Internet Brands, which has no meaning to anybody unless you know what Internet Brands owns. And Internet Brands owns RacingJunk.com and OldRide.com and Hot Rod Hotline, some of the greatest sites that are out there and that get huge traffic. So you've been on a little tour visiting some of your clients lately. Where'd you go this past week?
Yeah, this past week I left on Wednesday. And I visited one of my clients, Land Speed Racing. He's in Hilton Head. Right. Found a couple local shops in the Hilton Head, Savannah area. I like to go to restoration shops, talk about Hot Rod Hotline, Racing Junk, Old Rides. Right. We have a fit for these guys because they don't have parts to sell, but they have a service to sell. So I'm here to help them sell their service. Then I made a trip to Douglas, Georgia, which probably doesn't ring a bell to you. Douglas, Georgia is the trailer capital of Georgia. It's kind of in like the middle of the state. I remember driving through some Army base for about 50 miles, and the only signs I saw were tank crossings.
Not deer crossing, tank crossing.
No, tank crossings. So, I went to see one of our large dealers called Renowned Trailers. They're a very large Spartan and rock solid dealer in Douglas, Georgia. Right. Had dinner with those guys, and then got up in the morning and I headed toward back toward Savannah, and then I ended up heading back to Jacksonville. Found a couple shops in Jacksonville and got up yesterday morning and drove 5.5 hours to come home.
Now, did you do this in a regular car or in your hot
No,
rod?
a regular car. Rent a car.
Gotcha.
But I do take my hot rod. If I have to drive to some of my dealers and accounts, within 100 miles, I'll take my hot rod out. I get good mileage, and they pay me good mileage on that.
Yeah, I bet they do. Absolutely. Nice to get paid to drive a hot rod. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
So
not at all.
So the trailer guys, business has to be good because I've been trying to buy a 28-foot trailer, and it's been almost impossible.
Well, then we need to talk after this call because yes, he has over 400 all types of trailers in stock.
Nice. And we use a 28-footer for a show trailer. We just go out. Yep. You've seen our rig that we have with our excursion, and we just bought a new dually Chevy, and we wanted to get a trailer. And aluminum trailers are very difficult to find because aluminum's hard to get right now, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had a chance to visit Rock Solid, where they produce, I think, 60 trailers a day. They got 200 people there. Wow. If you go to my Facebook page and also on Racing Junk and Hot Rod Hotline this week, I'm going to have a shop tour. I kind of went from one building to each other building to take some pictures, and it's amazing. And I went to see a lot with 400 trailers.
Sure, absolutely, and not many places you're seeing that, but certainly there. Of course, the other capital of trailer world is Elkhart.
Elkhart, yes.
Yeah, yes. I was there for an auction with RM last year or the year before last, maybe a couple of years ago, and that's an amazing area. There's trailers everywhere of all kinds, campers, RVs. Hauling trailers, toy boxes, everything is just amazing. So how long have you been down in Pawleys Island? When did you move down there?
I made the move out of New Jersey about a year and a half ago. Looking around, been coming down Pawleys Island for a long time. A lot of car guys here. Everybody said when you get down by Myrtle Beach and Pawleys Island is about 25 miles south of Myrtle Beach and between Charleston. So if you drive from Myrtle Beach and you go to Charleston, you drive through my neighborhood. Right. All the car guys down here have been, a lot of them retired, and no, I'm not retired, still working my butt off. They all lived in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, upstate New York. So, and they're all buying cars, and they're all asking me where to go to cars. And, I point them to your direction. A lot of guys go back to vacation. I know I've sent a few people up to your place to see you, and you've seen me, I think about a month ago when I made my trip. And definitely when I go to Dead Man's Curve, I'm definitely going to go to the museum in Philadelphia and come up to see you again.
Absolutely. We love having you, and we always get our picture made, and so we can document that we've gained a little weight or lost a little weight or got a little grayer or less grayer. You know, it's funny how many of the guys that have moved away from, you know, this part of the world, because let's face it, there's a lot of people in this part of the world, and the congestion and traffic and all that. And so, you know, you move down to Pawleys Island, it's a whole different pace of life. You know, and I used to, as a kid, we used to go to Pawleys Island for different holidays, and we'd go a lot of times for Thanksgiving, and it would be kind of cool, but you'd be walking on the beach with a jacket on, but it'd be kind of cool. But I got to ask you the one question: if you live in Pawleys Island, have you ever visited Alice's grave?
Yes.
So there's a cemetery in Pawleys Island that is, and it's Alice is buried there. And if you put a ring between the L and the I of her name and walk backwards around her grave, then her spirit will conjure up or something will happen. I don't know. And we were all kids when we used to do that, and it scared the crap out of us because it'd be late at night and my dad would, you know, I'd have a couple of scotches in him and, come on, we're going to go to Alice's grave.
That's grave, right?
Yeah. No, I don't want to go, Dad. So, but anyway, but Pawleys Island, beautiful part of the world, and a lot of car guys down in that part of the world, and probably some good shows in Myrtle Beach area too, right?
Yeah, we have a couple. We have a lot of cruise-ins, and you know, between Myrtle Beach Car Club and Roger, who runs Hot Rod Promotions, there's always something to do during the week. I got involved last year with Run to the Sun. Yeah. That's a very unique car show. 3,200 cars at an empty mall parking lot in the middle of March. Phenomenal turnout. I'm working with the new management group who's taking care of it, trying to get some sponsors, you know, besides the radio show that I do on Saturday and stuff like that.
I'd like to talk to you about that, because one of the reasons we bought this newer dually is to expand our footprint of events that we're doing. And so definitely would love to talk to you about that event as well too.
Perfect.
At some point.
That's another thing I do in another job I have besides everything else at Racing Junk.
Right, exactly. So for those of you who don't know, let's go through each of these. RacingJunk.com. Tell us a brief synopsis about what that is.
Okay, sure. So I'm going to give you the 60,000 foot story, or whatever you want to say. So Racing Junk was started about 21 years ago by a few gentlemen up in upstate New York. To be honest, right on the border of New York, Vermont, and Massachusetts, North Adams. Racing Junk started as selling race car parts. Well, over the past 21 years, Racing Junk was sold to Internet Brands, who you mentioned before. Internet Brands also bought Hot Rod Hotline, All Rides, and Collector Car Nation. Internet Brands is unique. Internet Brands also bought WebMD about 11 years ago for $2.5 billion.
Wow.
So if you guys go to a message chat board, LS Forum, Harley Davidson Forum, BMW Forum, F-150 Forum, that is part of Internet Brands. They own all of that. Wow. They own Cars Direct. They own Photo Travel. They own a bunch of legal sites. So we're the classified section. They kind of leave us alone. We go out and sell our stuff. So Racing Junk has over 900,000 members, which is we are the world's largest site for selling everything from drag cars, muscle cars, street rods, hot rods, classic cars, trucks, trailers. Our biggest bang for the buck is people go to look for drag cars and trucks and trailers. Sure. We average anywhere between 18 to 25 million page views a month. When we have inventory and there's a lot of stuff to sell, good example, classic cars, muscle cars, 700,000 page views a month.
Unbelievable. That's amazing amount of traffic that you guys are getting.
Oh yeah. Sure. So we also have, High Rod Hotline and All Rides. And those are, tour sites that were started years ago by husband and wife out of Boise, Idaho, which was sold at the same time when Racing Junk was sold. So you get a different mix of people that will go there that maybe are not internet savvy that much. So they'll go to the older sites. The first thing they think is, I'm going to go to Racing Junk because I don't need to buy any race car parts. Right. We still have muscle cars, street rods. Your cars are on there.
Sure.
Collector Car Nation. That's kind of a hidden deal because we use that as we call a dealer feed. So we feed into there, but everything you see on Collector Car Nation, you'll see on Racing Junk and Old Rides.
Sure, absolutely. And what's your feedback from classic car dealers? How's the market for everybody right now? Good.
The market's strong. I go to your place. I go to Street Side Classics. I go to RM Motors. I go to Vanguard Motors. Those are all my big accounts.
Sure.
Some guys are a little bit low on stock. They've sold a lot. I don't think as many people sell as many cars as you do for a single location. I mentioned that before. But you got the multiple sites. They're moving stuff. They have 200-300 cars in stock. I think the market now is the guys still want to buy a car, but they don't want to go, the high-end restaurant mod car. They don't want to go 125, 150 unless they, especially now with the market and everything.
Yeah.
They're going to stick to somewhere between that $35,000 to $75,000 car.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Funny that you should mention that. We were just discussing that yesterday. That the fact that the market has shifted a little bit, that we're selling the lower end cars are what seems to be selling right now, because I think people are maybe being a little bit cautious. And hey, I get that. Listen, we never know. You don't know what's next. Is Ebola coming? I mean, we don't
Right, exactly.
We don't know what's next, and so you have to be smart with your money, and that's okay. But people still want to have fun. And they still want to buy a cool car, and they still want to enjoy the hobby. And so the market continues to sell. It's funny how it fluctuates on pricing and overseas buyers, and when the dollar's strong and the dollar's weak, and all of that, because we advertise just as heavily in Europe as we do in the US, and do a lot of business overseas, because funny that you can ship a car cheaper from here to England than you can from here to Oregon.
Yes,
that blows
that's
people's
amazing.
mind.
I know, it's amazing.
Absolutely. Yep. Of course, you don't want to be on that one ship
No.
that sank. And didn't we hear? Didn't somebody tell us on our other show that Steve that there was another ship behind it, or there was another one that had trouble as well too, and it had some damage. And so it's like, oh my God, what a nightmare. To have a load of cars, even one car.
One car.
Because think about it. These guys from overseas buy a car from us, and literally it might be months before they get their car. I mean, that's got to be some patience to.
Well, I had a 32 Ford that in 2000, I think it was 6 or 7, got invited to the 75th anniversary of the 32 Ford in California.
Yeah.
The Grand National Roadster Show. Went to the Peterson's Museum, sold it to a guy in Australia. The guy saw it in a magazine. And he goes, "Are you Big Al?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm Big Al for Australia." I said, "Great." He goes, "Is the car for sale?" I said, "Sure." He goes, I said, "Where do you live in Australia?" He said, "Well, you Yanks know of something called Nova Scotia?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I'm the furthest point north before you fall into the water." And by the way, all the roads are gravel.
Oh my
And I
God.
said, "You sure you want the car?" And he said,
Yeah.
"Yeah." So this is 2007 when the Australian dollar was strong.
Right.
Sent me the money the next day. Money cleared, whatever. Sent him a receipt. He said, "Drive the car for the next 5 months until the truck picks it up."
Wow.
And I never heard back from the guy since 2007.
Unbelievable. Is not the car behind you, is it?
No, it's the purple and black one. It was the
Oh yeah.
black 32 with the purple flames. Yeah.
I remember that.
Yep.
How funny is that? It's a weird world, isn't it? Sometimes we sold. I've told this before. We sold a Mustang to a guy in like 2007, and we had the title in the car and his money, and he went dormant. We never heard back from him. And 3 years later, he showed up at our place, and my wife said, "Where have you been? You bought this car 3 years ago." He said, I'd never told my wife. And so I finally, after 3 years, got the courage to tell my wife. So when we return, we'll talk about more interesting things with my buddy Al Liebmann, and we'll be back with the Classic Auto Mall podcast in just a couple of moments. And we're back with the Classic Auto Mall podcast. A beautiful sunny day. It's been a rainy, we've had a rainy whatever. It's been like this. It's not summer. Did it turn summer this week?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Al. It was. It's become summer. So all of a sudden, but it's been a weird summer for us. It hasn't been very warm, and we've had lots of rain. So how's your weather been down there? Good.
It's been good. It's been hot. We're on a dry spell now.
Yeah.
Usually it rains a lot in February and March. March, it was gorgeous. Just
Right. Well, you're gonna have to take up golf, because the golfing is wonderful down there.
I know. You know, it is. I sit. It's hard to tell, but I sit in my backyard and I watch the guys either drive the golf carts into the pond, or how many balls end up in the water.
Yeah.
Sometimes they end up on my property.
Well, you just start collecting them, and then you can sell them on
I know.
sell them on eBay
Oh.
for some of that retirement money. That's all you need, right?
There's guys out there with scoops on the other side scooping up, and I kind of watch out for the alligators. We got 2 or 3 alligators in here now.
Yeah, you probably ought to watch out for that. That might be something to be careful of. And you know what to do if an alligator's chasing you, don't you? You know how to run, don't you? You got to go.
No.
You got to go back and forth because they can't change direction. If you run in a
Oh,
straight,
that's right. You don't, yes. Only
if
go
you
straight.
if
That's
you
right.
run in a straight line, those son of a bitches will catch you. They are fast in a short burst straight line. So, but try to remember all that when you're getting chased by an alligator. So, so anyway, wanted to talk to you. We didn't really touch on it, but your car in the background has got a pretty interesting story. You've owned that car for a while too, haven't you?
I've had that car 7 years.
That's a long time for you.
Which is a long time for me. My last car I had was 13 years, but in the interim, I've had a bunch of other cars. So I've had this car for 7 years. I always wanted a 32 5-window, not chopped, not channeled, small block Chevy. Maybe had some kind of history.
Sure.
So I end up buying this online from on Facebook Marketplace from a guy in Oklahoma. I get the history of the car, and it's an original Jersey car.
Oh.
And I lived in New Jersey when I
Right.
had it. So I traced the car back to a father and son that bought the car in '59 in Orlando, Florida. He had the car from '59 to 2004.
Wow.
They took the flathead out, put a small block Ford in there, put a small block Chevy. That car's been to California 2 or 3 times. I got pictures in the desert. I got pictures at Bonneville. And then it was sold in 2004 to a gentleman from Alabama. He had it from 2004 to 2014 or 15. And then I got it. Kind of did like a quick go back and forth. But it was kind of very funny about this. Buddy of mine, Jimmy B, has a magazine, online magazine called Gearhead Gazette.
Right.
And he lives in Tennessee, and he's talking with a friend of mine who I know in New Jersey, who lived in Tennessee. And they're looking at phones, looking at their pictures on their phones, and they says, "Stop." He goes, "What do you mean? Tell me about this red 32 with black fenders." He goes, "Oh." He goes, "This picture was taken in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina in 1997. I go, "What do you remember about this picture?" Father and son come up to car show, 500 cars. At the end of the show, they get this big glass trophy with it. Go, "Why do you ask?" He goes, "Well, that's Big Al's car." So what's your chances of this guy knowing me, have a car that I bought? Then the car goes back to South Carolina, 75 miles away, 26 years later.
Wow. It's a small world sometimes.
But it's even better. So I'm finding out the second owner, he had a house in Asheville, North Carolina. So that kind of figured Asheville to Myrtle Beach, or it's Asheville to Charleston, not that too far of a ride. I get a phone call from a gentleman about 80 years old, and he goes, "So you own the Ferry Coupe?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Me and Old Man Ferry, I know this car 45 years. I've been all over the country with that car." He goes, we took that car to York, all over the place."
Wow.
So he started to give me the history of the car. But it's a neat piece. It has a lot of, it's hard to tell, but it has worn paint on it. People ask me, what color is it? I call it reddish because it's red and orange and, painted, and not orange, but from the sun.
Sure.
At one point, we think the thing had a tarp on the back, and it kind of like tarp was hitting against it, and the kind of paint was all worn. But it's a great driver. I mean, on a hot day, if it's 100 degrees, 90 degrees, it runs 200 all the time.
Wow. And just roll the windows down, right? And you get a little air going.
What's neat, you roll the front window out, you roll the back window, because that is the back window, and you roll the side windows down. And if you're going through a wind, you better hold on, because it acts like a big vortex. But it's a neat deal.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's fantastic. And, that's the kind of car. I love cars that are driven and used like they're supposed to be. And so many cars are not driven and not used at all. And they're just, listen, I get it. You collect cars and you want to put them away, but man, they're supposed to be driven. And that's why, the big Concours d'Elegances now all reward people for driving their cars in the tour that they do the day before the show. And they don't ding them for a bug here or a speck of dirt or even a rock chip. It happens as long as the car's restored like it's supposed to be.
I got into the hot rod world by mistake.
Right.
Back in 1985, when I was working full-time and drag racing full-time with a bunch of funny car teams, me and my wife went to McCunchie, and she told me, "You're going to get one of these muscle car, one of these cars one day." I said, "It's never going to happen. I don't have any time." Well, my first street rod was a 40 Ford with a small block Ford in it, velour interior, typical street rodish from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
That kind of put me over the top because where I lived in New Jersey, I had a neighbor that lived across the street from me, and he built a couple cars for George Barris. So we did a Chrysler City Coupe, a 46 Chrysler City Coupe with an all glass roof. We did a 36 gram 4-door sedan, made it into a dual windshield car, kind of unique. Did a couple other things for George. I became close with George. At that point in 2000, I was taking pictures for Hot Rod Hotline. So I've taken probably since 2000 to now, 2000 to 2022, probably 500,000 pictures of car shows all over the country.
So you have an iPhone with 22 terabytes of storage, right?
Well, I started with a 1 meg camera. The screen one was this big, whatever. So I've gotten to the iPhone. No regular camera.
No, exactly.
I go to Grand National Roadster Show. I go to Detroit Autorama. I usually know when the grade 8 are listed before even the grade 8 know about it. Right. I have a key to get in at night to take pictures. So I kind of got my hands in everything, besides, the radio show I mentioned, we had you on, a couple months ago. Yeah. It's called In the Pits Media, powered by Racing Junk. We're on WRNN radio station. So it's a real radio. I'm not going to say anything about podcast. Real radio station. Saturday.
Don't be dissing my little podcast here.
No, I'll tell you, it's great. But hold on, we're going to be streaming soon on TV. But that's another thing.
Nice, that's fantastic.
So we're on Saturday on WRNN from Myrtle Beach from 12 to 2. We talk everything from hot rods, race cars, muscle cars, you name it. All about that stuff.
Absolutely. And I wanted to mention to you too, my bucket list, a couple of things that I've never done is the Grand National Roadster Show and the Detroit Autorama. So you and I are going to have to talk about this because I need to come be your shadow at a couple of these events like that because they're on my list and I'm not getting any younger, by the way. So
no. You got to remember, if you go to Detroit, you're going in the wintertime.
Yeah,
so it could be 60 degrees or it could be minus 6 degrees and a foot and a half of snow. No.
I went to the Detroit Auto Show in 2004, and it was a little bit chilly there. I left I left my trademark Coca-Cola in my car. About half of it I left in the car, just normal. I'd finished half of it and just left it. Didn't think anything about it. Came back out and it was completely all over the car.
Yes. Car. Yep.
It had expanded a little bit, but I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed going up to the Detroit Auto Show in its heyday in 2004. I can't imagine it's exactly the same now. But
no.
So the radio show is you, and who else is on the show?
It's myself, Mike Neff, Larry Donahue, who you spoke, who was on the show. We're also going to talk to you about some other opportunities.
Sure.
Artie Shearling, East Coast Artie. He's a pinstriper from back in New York, New Jersey, retired.
Yeah,
not kind of retired, moved down here. So again, we do it Saturday, 12 to 2. We tape it on Tuesday, so we can go have fun on Saturdays.
Sure.
If I'm on the road, I call in from the road, and we have NASCAR drivers call in, IMSA car drivers, hot rod guys call in, builders, trailer guys. We have people like you call in. Sure. We want our public, again, because you can listen anywhere. What's going on out there in the car world.
Sure. Yeah. And that's, listen, at the end of the day, I mean, the reason we started the Classic Auto Mall podcast is to sell more cars and consign more cars at Classic Auto Mall. That's a given. However, we're having a lot of fun doing this, getting to talk to people like you and people that I met last night and people that we've had on the show in the past already, just in doing 42 episodes. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I look forward to it. I don't dread it. Now, the day that I do dread it, then we're going to let Steve take over and he can start messing with it.
No, it's fun. Again, I enjoy going to the station on Saturday. I take a couple hours out of work, 2 to 4. Like I mentioned before, we're going to be streaming on Wingding TV. So if you guys get a chance, check out Wingding TV. Right. You can get it on Roku. You're going to see businesses like yourself on there. You're going to see race car shops. You're going to see hot rod shops. Wingding TV was started in Myrtle Beach by a gentleman named Jeff Gilder. He's a kind of golf guy. Did a lot of stuff with ESPN and NBC Sports. So we're bringing them the next level because you got people, they don't want to go to YouTube on their computer or the phone, whatever, but they stream. Well, why not sit home on a Saturday night and stream Classic Car Auto Mall? Right. Episode number 1 from your couch.
Yeah, exactly right. So
we could talk about that too, because we could take your podcast and stream them also.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, we love that. I mean, every opportunity we can get to put this out there, because what we're finding is that way more people listen to us and watch us than we even had any idea. You know, we were shocked.
Yep.
We were thinking,
Yep.
we're hoping one person was listening. Please, just anybody.
And it's the one person isn't Kathy either.
Yes, it is.
I know. Okay. All right.
She is the one person listening. But you know, what we found is that I never listened to podcasts prior to doing this. And I just did it because I thought, you know, we have the space. It's kind of the next idea from a marketing standpoint. But surprisingly well, we get people who say, oh, we watched your show, we listened to your show, and we've heard your show. And I think, wow, I'm really surprised at that. So podcasts in the automotive world have seemed to become very, very popular.
Yes.
And much more people listening than I realized. And now I, in turn, listen to stuff as well too, because, you know, I realize that, wow, there's some cool stuff out there and I don't know everything.
No.
So, but anyway, where are you headed next?
Where am I headed next? Probably take a week off, you know, just do some normal work around, you know, for my normal calling customers, stuff like that. I'm heading to Syracuse, Syracuse Nationals, which you know that show very well.
Yeah, we're going to be there.
As you know, I'm heavily involved in funny cars, been doing that for years. So I'm doing what we call Nitro Row. So Nitro Row will be located outside and not too far from your trailer.
Yeah.
The new exposition center. And I bring a group of anywhere between 8 to 15 Nitro funny car dragsters in. We start them up all weekend long. So that's a big event for me. Besides, you know, going to take pictures, and, you know, that's a show. They get 8,000 cars, 75,000 people. And then another show that I go to that you guys also participate, Dead Man's Curve.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
That's our big deal for 415 presents Nitro Row. There I'm going to have 25 cars this year.
Wow.
Oh. And is that called a cackle fest when they start to?
We don't like to use because that's NHRA's trademark. So yes, you call it a cackle. You call it a cackle fest. You know, like I said, I've been around funny cars for over 50 years.
Right.
A lot of these, and I'm involved now with Rocky Perone and Drew Sweetman with the Frantic Fords and the Super Camaro. So that keeps you busy. So we get these guys together sometimes, a break from racing. We get them paid to come out and have a good time.
Sure. Do you ever do anything up at Maple Grove here, which just was recently bought?
Yeah, bought by Kenny Corexty. Yep.
Yeah,
which is great. They've already, you know, if you notice, they put new bathrooms in and they changed the signs.
Yes. Thank God.
Maple Grove. I haven't been up there for a big show, you know, in a couple of years, but I spent a lot of time funny car racing there in the 70s and 80s.
Sure.
Used to go swimming at the pool. At the Maple
big
Grove
round pool. Yeah, it was amazing.
Which is the world's largest. I don't even want to call it above ground or whatever. It's the world's largest pool of that particular size.
Right. And then they had a bar and a restaurant there as well, too. That was a fun place to hang out. Yeah. So anyway, Al, it's such a pleasure to talk with you as always. And I know you'll show up and I love when you just show up here because you're always here and take a picture and positive and get me fired up if I'm having a bad day. So appreciate everything you do for us. And
no problem.
Yeah. Look forward to seeing you down the road, and let's talk some more about some of these things that we'll talk some more about.
No, definitely. And again, I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate the business. Good luck in summer selling cars, and I'll see you soon. How's that?
Take care, Al. We'll be back in about 2 minutes with Classic Auto Mall's podcast from the Classic Auto Mall studios in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. See you in a minute.